Okay, so I have these untracked files. I'm going to get add dot. That should add them. And then I can do a get.
Do you want to, Jim, sometimes I like to run git status again just to make sure it did everything that I thought before I go ahead and make the commit.
Good idea.
Yeah, oh, that looks like what you wanted.
So what about the modified file? Oh, they're in here. Okay.
Yeah.
Now what about the package lock? Do I want that?
Yeah, tradition is you want to commit that.
So now git commit -a.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, guy. Oops.
Hi, Dan.
Hello.
And this was added MacRholang support, right?
Nice.
And what are we doing?
Yeah, that just save it there. Default. Yeah, perfect.
Hopefully that did it.
Yeah, nice job.
Yeah, I don't know how to use what do you call it? An editor. Okay, so now I want to do a push, right? But I think a push won't work because I think the home is Dan, is the community. Okay, so I can't commit here. So I can commit to the Jim Scarver. I want to do a pull request. How do I do
it? Have you forked this into your own GitHub yet from the community one?
Yes, yeah, the community one is actually forked from mine, I think.
Oh, interesting. So we just got to make sure yours is set up as a remote then. If you just type git remote and press enter, it'll, or maybe even git remote -v, it'll tell us whether that's all set up. So it looks like your local computer only knows about the one that lives in the rchain community. If you just give me 1 minute to work offline, I will give you a command and then explain it.
So I have to add the remote, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, I dropped a command in the chat that might help you. Or yeah, or maybe you're just going to compose it.
Drop the command in the chat. KYC bot isn't the right one, actually.
Oh, okay, okay, my bad. Yeah, you can find the right one.
Because we created another one. Where's my repositories?
Where's that pic from, Jim?
The what?
Where's that photo of you?
Where's the photo? It's this one?
Yeah.
That's at the Wikiwachi Beach here. Pine
Oh, yeah.
Island.
Near Tampa?
Yeah, north of Tampa.
Cool.
I could have sworn I had one here for a robot. Huh. So I could use this one, I guess. This was the original, but this is not a remote, right?
Yeah, that's not set up as a remote in your local Git repo.
So should I just commit it here, or what should I do?
Well, I'm not totally sure if it's like actually the same project. Is this, is the thing you're working on now an outgrowth of this KYC bot, or like do they have a common history?
They have a common history, yeah.
So you can push it to there if you want to then. It's just a matter of whether you want that over top of whatever is here right now.
Well, what I really want to do is a pull request to the ArtChain community.
Yeah. Oh, right. So it looks like the one at ArtChain community is forked from your KYC bot. So yeah, you should push it to your KYC bot. Oh wait, hold on. Sorry, it's called rho-bot. I'm not sure. I need to get oriented a little bit.
What are you saying? Rho-bot.
I was trying to figure out whether this ArtChain community / rho-bot repository has any is like a fork from one of yours, and it looks like it's not. It doesn't have any forks or forked from anything. So you'll have to make a fork of this robot repository, and then you can push to your fork, and then you can make the pull request.
Okay, that's what I thought I had already done with Dan the last time, but apparently not.
Maybe that happened with KYC bot. Yeah. So like for example, right now you're looking at your repo for KYC bot, and near the top right corner you can see there's two forks, higher and righter of where your cursor is right now. Yeah, a little more to the right it says two forks. And so like yeah, if you click on that number 2, not the word fork, it'll show you what's forked it, and I think ArtChain community is one of them. But then like if we do this same endeavor where we look at what are all the forks of the rho-bot repository, then there weren't any forks.
Okay, so what do I do now?
So my question is this, Jim, what is the difference between KYC bot and rho-bot?
Our intention was to just rename it.
Just rename it. Okay. Because there's a repository called ArtChain community / robot that isn't forked from KYC bot or anything. That's the only tricky part here.
So I just want to make a pull request to that repository.
To KYC bot?
No, to robot.
Okay, so then you should fork the robot repository, push these local changes up to your fork, and then make the pull request. So the first step of forking it, that's through, oh, wait, what is going on here?
So I should push it to KYC bot?
I don't think that's gonna help you make a pull request against robot. I just now noticed that you did add the KYC bot here. The,
Right.
the big issue that we're having is that there's two different repositories, right? There's KYC bot and its various forks, and then there's robot and its various forks. But as far as GitHub knows, those are totally unrelated projects. So GitHub won't let you make a pull request from one to the other, even if it turns out that they have like common commit history.
So what I need to do is I need to fork this one, right?
You need to fork robot. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, and I do that in
GitHub website.
I go to GitHub here.
Yeah. Yep. You could even probably paste that, or yeah.
And
Yep. And then if you can get over to the RChain community one, then we'll be able to fork robot.
oh.
Yeah, that's just the official RChain, I think.
Oops.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Cool. And then top right, you can click fork. Farther right, yeah, nice.
And I fork it here.
Yeah, nice.
Now
Great.
do I have to create anything here?
I think you just have to click refresh. Oh, there you go. And so there's a green button near the right side that says clone or download, and so we can copy the link. Nice, nice, nice. This is going great.
Now I have to add remote again, right?
Yeah, so it might be better to get remote rename, or here's what I'm thinking. We just don't want to get confused about which remotes are for KYC bot and which ones are for robot. So it might be a good idea to totally remove that KYC bot one, or just update it to point to the robot one, so that we don't accidentally push to the wrong place in the future.
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I think it's get remote set-URL. Let me just check real quick.
You just remove and then add.
Yeah, you can also remove and
remove.
Yeah, and then just the human name. So Jim is what that one's called right now.
Oh, Jim.
Yeah. Don't worry, we're gonna add you back.
Goodbye, crew world.
Yeah.
That worked.
Yeah, cool.
And then we have get add.
Get remote add.
Get remote add Jim.
Yep, and then that link. Yeah, now we're talking. All right. And now you can get push Jim and then a branch name, which is probably master unless you know differently. Yay, all right. And the very last step is back in the website interface. You can make that pull request.
Okay, so where do I make the pull request?
Just a little bit below your current mouse cursor, it says new pull request, right below 19 commits. Nice. And then it says The base repository is RChain Community Robot, and the one that you're pull requesting from is your version of Robot. That looks good to me.
Okay. MacRholang support. Create pull request.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice, Jim. That looks great.
Thank you much. So if we have time, you can look at some at the new inbox for the locker that we're implementing for voting using Robot. But this is Dan's meeting, and hi, Dan. Good morning.
Morning.
What did you have in mind for today?
Let's see. I hadn't really.
If you're looking for inspiration, I've mused on some rholang stuff recently that we could take a look at.
Yeah, I'm into this command line wallet stuff. Is where my head is these days.
Yeah. Cool.
I figured out the insert sign stuff.
Yeah, I'm really interested in at least an overview of that. I know you've been keeping that posted up on Discord, and I had a few questions just to get me, and they've been very helpful for me, I should add. I'm trying to catch up with some of the work that you're doing and merge it into my stuff. I'll be happy to show you kind of what I've been working on and where I'm struggling, is especially with unforgeable names and that kind of thing. So plenty to talk about. Joshy, can you elaborate on what you wanted to show?
I don't necessarily need to show it. It was just an offer. I've been committing stuff to my repository libro that is just interesting rholang stuff. And so one that I worked on recently was so I'm taking this programming languages course, and they were talking about the different idioms for calling functions in functional languages like Haskell or ML. And so the two they talked about were tupling, where you send in a single parameter that's a tuple of all the actual arguments. And then the other one is currying, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with this.
Yeah.
Fellow people. And so I was like, oh, well, it would be fun to write things to convert those idioms in rholang. And it turns out currying is not great in rholang because it sequentializes everything. It's I give you an arg, you give me back a function. I give you another arg, you give me back another function. But there's a different one called multiplexing, or that I'm calling multiplexing. I think I heard Artur call it that once, where you basically give it a tuple of channels on which arguments will come when they're ready. So I wrote rholang to sort of convert all of those. So like if I've written some library function that expects tupled arguments, but your use case wants to call it multiplexed or for whatever reason curried, you can just use this like wrapper forwarder so that you can call it the way you want to call it. And then the other one in that spirit that I wrote recently was there was this stylistic debate for a while of when you're like method dispatching, should the method name be the first argument, or should the channel be a tuple that includes like the instance and the method name? And so I'm about 99% of the way done with that converter working too, but there's a pattern matching bug that I was stuck on. But even if we don't look at that stuff, it's out there in Libro if it ever sounds interesting or like something you might need.
And is it correct to call these things sort of these idioms in a sense a syntactic sugar to help the programmer match his or her paradigm of thinking or the problem space that they like to work in? But
yeah, I mean, I don't know if someone more technical than me wouldn't like or would like the term syntactic sugar, but yeah, but the rest definitely, right? It's like, yeah, the person who wrote the function wrote it for one way of thinking, and you want to use it a different way, and so now there's this really thin wrapper that'll convert.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of preferences around that, like the for comprehension versus maps and other approaches that.
Oh yeah, that's another good one that on the right. Yeah.
Yeah, that you know, I totally grok an example in for comprehensions or futures with maps, but you know, I can't readily switch back and forth between these idioms.
Yeah,
Me
yeah.
personally, yeah.
What Dashi's doing is more patterns, programming patterns than syntactic sugar.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, patterns is probably a good way to call that. Yeah.
Cool.
Nice. But yeah, but likewise, I also don't know much about the command line wallet, so that would be interesting too.
But let me just ask one brief question, hopefully, Joshi, to at least to stay on that subject. Is what is your and as far as you know, the community's opinion about how rholang education will happen in the future? I know you've been spearheading a lot of that, and I applaud you for it. It's great, but I don't see the co-op doing anything in that whole subject.
I'm trying really hard not to, with Jonathan's encouraging, I'm trying really hard not to be snarky toward the co-op. And that's kind of my general attitude about rholang education. So maybe that says enough. Like, I don't see it happening either. And I felt like my efforts weren't really appreciated. And so I'm not really doing it anymore, at least.
Well, I think everyone here does, and certainly others. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Maybe like they'll go to Poland next week and come back all jazzed and want everyone to know how to work rholang, and then we'll be off and running. That's my hope.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'd like to talk more about it at a later time with you.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, I'd love to.
Okay, cool.
The stuff about currying and stuff is very relevant to the locker design.
Oh, cool. Oh, yeah, great. I think you might have seen some of it, Dan, right? You gave me feedback on some of my Libro stuff. I don't remember if it was that or not.
It was stuff in that area.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Well, maybe let me just take a minute to show you this one PR then, and then Dan, it can be up to you what we do next. I've got this one. I think this is the one. So, in fact, maybe I should go back, or here, we can look at it here. So there's this is the thing I was talking about that not everybody agrees on. I thought that was going to get bigger, but maybe not. So the old way that I used to do it, and I still like, not really for reasons that I can articulate well, just because I think it's cool, is this deal where I call, like, you know, my purse, comma, transfer, or whatever as the channel name, and then over here is how much money and where it's going and stuff. And then the newer one that's also perfectly good is where I just call my purse, and then the first argument is transfer, and then we have how much and all of that stuff. So these are just stupid little methods that, like, you know, print something, that's it. And so then I have these two contracts, and the first one is called compound. And so it takes something that's not compounded, so something that you'd call like this way, and gives you back something that is compounded that you'd call this sort of tuple channel way. And then I have, it's a little hard to read here because I made a comment right in the middle of it, but this contract does the opposite thing. It takes in the one that is tupled and gives you back one that's not. And I just got stuck on this one pattern match. This is the only thing that's not working about it, and I think it's because I don't fully understand how that equal works, or maybe it's because there's a bug, but I think it's more likely that I don't really understand how it works.
Wait, is method supposed to be bound at this point?
Yeah, method gets bound right here. So
okay.
So imagine I have something that's, you know, standard library author wrote something that needs to be called on a compound channel. For whatever reason, I don't like it, and I'd like to use the method as the first arg.
Right.
So I give it this compound thing that I got from wherever, pattern match on the two pieces. So, and there's this whole comment about how I think bundling does two things that maybe shouldn't be so tightly linked together, but that's a little tiny bit orthogonal. So let's just assume we don't have a bundle, and so I can do this pattern matching and everything. So now that method's bound, what I really want is to pattern match. When someone calls with the first arg of method, I'm actually just going to dispatch that to this original like tuple thing that I had. So anyway, I guess I just wanted to share that with you guys. So maybe it'll be, hopefully it'll be useful someday, but if not, it was at least educational to write.
I have a similar issue with the inbox, I guess, where I'm trying to match on on the contents of the inbox, and I want to give a pattern as an argument, and I wasn't able to get that to work.
Pattern as an argument, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, well, you can see, I think I can show you in a few seconds, I hope.
If you could type the messages coming in, then you could match based on the type, but you're wanting based on some other, like a string compare kind of pattern, or what?
Okay. Okay, the way that it does work is I match on a list. Okay, the type and the subtype of the message in the inbox. The general one, I try what?
Well, can someone explain the equals asterisk pattern, or what the equals sign is? You were talking about this earlier, Joshy.
Yeah, I'll give you my understanding of it. I think my understanding is at least mostly right, but something wasn't working there. And so like a good example is if you look at the line, not the line that Jim's cursor's on, but like one line above that, there's that for comprehension.
Yeah.
And so what would happen there is we receive something from box and it gets bound to the name items, right? Like if we sent 4 on box, then items equals 4 now. Well, sometimes what you want to do, you could imagine I also wrote like 4 nil from box. Then nil doesn't get bound to whatever comes. That's a pattern match, right? Like we're only going to have a comma event there if nil itself actually comes on box.
Is that, and sorry to interrupt, is a wildcard underscore?
Yeah, exactly. Yep,
Or
underscore would match anything. Yeah, exactly right. Or, you know, there's all kinds of patterns. Like I could match on I could do like left paren A comma B, and now I'm matching on a 2 tuple, like a pair. So the trick is every once in a while, what you want to do is pattern match against a variable that you already have, right? Like in some cases, I would say for the number 6 coming from this channel, but in this particular case, 6 is bound to a variable. I don't want to hard code it in there. So if I just wrote, oh shoot, Jim, what line were we on there? Well, okay, let's look at the one that's like 3, yeah, let's look at,
Okay, so
there it is, kind of near the bottom, inside a contract, right? We have like 4 items from box. So I don't think it's the case in this example, but just imagine that items was like some variable that already had some value. And what Jim was trying to do here was pattern match. So the only thing that we'll accept coming in on the channel box is whatever, you know, whatever items already contains. Well, the way it's written there, items would be bound to anything that came on box and shadow the previous definition of items. So if we were to put a little equal in front of items, then it says like, I'm not trying to bind this name items to something new that's coming in. I'm actually trying to pattern match on it. I'm trying to use items like in order to restrict what actually can come in on box.
Oh, similar to what I think of as runtime type information or something.
Oh, that sounds like a
Yeah.
good phrase.
I would say that, you know, the thing is that if I didn't have the
Oh, you got
on here, it would bind pattern to what I matched. Pattern would be a free variable. But because I use the equal sign, it forces it to use the pattern I bound here.
Yeah, that's
Rather than interpret it as a free variable that I was going to define.
so. Okay, so yeah, so Jim, you're trying to match items, whatever's in items, the thing that came in, to.
I want to grab an item that matches the pattern that I passed to the read.
Yeah, I see.
Okay, and you know, down here, I passed it a pattern. Now I tried 3 dots and I tried underscore, and either way it doesn't work. I think underscore gives an error. So I guess I can't do what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone try to pass patterns around. That sounds kind of interesting. So like I know the mantra is like you can only send processes and receive names, and I kind of don't think that includes process patterns, but it looks like you have a use case for that here.
Greg told me at one point that patterns are processes, which blew my mind. And I haven't verified that's the case, but maybe it is.
Jim, did that give you a syntax error? Oh, wait, you're doing it right now. Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
Oh, at 1.1. Oh, is this something that you want to actually run your preprocessor over? Like you might have pounds or dollar signs.
No, this isn't preprocessor. There's no preprocessor in here.
So what is at 1.1?
There's no. I don't think I have any macros in here.
It said the syntax error was line 1, column 1. I wonder if you can take us up to line 1.
Oh, I do have a dollar sign in there.
Oh yeah, and a pound on the very first line. That's what that was about. That's probably not your big picture. Oh, Jim, do you have a way that you can like run the preprocessor over this, and then the output is valid like pure rholang?
Yeah.
I think it's called CPP, isn't it? I mean, I think if you just run the C preprocessor, that's anyway. You mean from the Discord interface or something?
Oh, I just meant at all. I just meant like so we could help him with his actual rholang problem instead of getting the syntax error. Yeah.
Row exec. Why won't it execute? Oh, it's not / row exec.
Okay, that looks good.
Okay. And we can see 36. Okay, and that was with the try of the 3 dots.
Ah, yeah, so it didn't like that. Okay.
So I try an underscore here. What do I have? I have this in brackets. Why do I have that in brackets?
Oh yeah, do you need a right bracket? Yeah.
Okay. And that.
Okay, that seems like something more manageable.
Oops. Huh? What? Name very, oh, 24. So contract right. I have the process rep, and I need that to be a name.
That looks, to me, that looks like it's right. Shouldn't rep be a name if you took it in that way from a contract?
Yeah, so you don't want an at there.
Oh wait, Jim, does that accidentally say ret par nil instead of ret bang nil?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the problem.
That's a common thing.
Aha. There we go.
Yeah, the color was the giveaway.
Hey, welcome, David.
Hello.
Hey guys,
Hey, David.
Good morning.
good evening from Nigeria.
Yeah.
It's good to see you guys.
Yeah, man, you too.
Definitely.
So message. What is message?
What was the error message, Jim?
The name variable message used in a process context.
29 and 36. All right. So now we're on 36.
I think my problem is
Oh, so okay, so Jim, here you're sending on the channel receive, right? And it's what you need to send is some kind of process. So that could be a list, or it could be star message, or it could be the list par star message, but you've got to glue them together somehow there.
oh,
Or star message could go in the list. I'm not familiar enough with the use case to know which one you maybe want.
Is message a list and you're trying to say chat is the first item and the rest of the items are in message?
Oh.
no. First is the pattern. It's 2 arguments. So
Oh yeah, so maybe that's what you want then. And it looks like maybe a couple lines low. Yeah.
I don't know how I got so many errors in here. I was testing this before. And maybe I didn't save the latest.
Now it doesn't like that wild
This
card.
is the one. This was the error that I had gotten to. I guess I didn't save the
Top level wild cards are not allowed.
Yeah, so it's basically saying you can't send a pattern.
I can't. Yeah, can't send
Because
it.
that it's parsing that underscore as an unbound variable.
Oh.
Right.
Oh, that's why it said top level. I see.
It would be nice if I could match any arbitrary pattern.
Yeah.
in the box. I don't know if there's any way to fix that. Can I put an @ sign on it?
That'll make it a name. But
You can sure try, Jim. I'm not sure if that's going to work, but you'll know for sure.
That's sort of
What would happen if you put a star and an @ sign in front of it? I think it still wouldn't work, but Ed, did you have a question in particular?
Oh, I was thinking and queuing up some. Yeah, just give me a little more time and I'm writing some stuff. Then it'll be more thoughtful.
see what I got done lately here. I was committing something a second ago, so I just did that. If anybody wants to know how to make URIs, I know more than anybody should know. But.
Oh, I'm curious about that. You mean like if I register something, being able to predict what the URI is going to be?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
that's interesting.
Yes.
Or even to have it documented somewhere sounds great.
Is this is not the equivalent of private name preview? This is something else?
Correct. This is something else. This is if you do insert signed.
Yeah, very interested. Yes.
So,
hey Dan, does it work for arbitrary too, or are those totally different or largely different processes?
that's a good question. I think they share the same code. So, now what did I do with it? Here. Am I showing my screen? I can't even.
Yeah.
Okay. CRC 14. I had never heard of that. Wikipedia has never heard of it. Google has never heard of it. NPM has never heard of it. Anyway, so I just line for line ported the code. Anyway,
Where did you finally hear of it? Where did you find something to port it from?
right there.
Oh, this is Archain Scala code.
Yeah.
Oh, got you. Okay.
And then, so, you know, if I less than 8, if I less than 8, who knows what the hell it's doing?
Yeah, right.
All I did was change to short to, you know, and 0xFFFF. Okay, so this was a major source of clues. So Oviedo was trying to figure out, there's this stuff at the top of makemint.row that was giving him fits. So this sort of made sense to me because I'd been through some of it. So this stuff about once you have a user, here's the private key and a timestamp, you can make an unforgeable name. And I've seen the code to do that, and I almost understand it, but I have not convinced myself I could port it to JavaScript. So what I did was I made an RPC instead. That's preview private names, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then...
Yeah, and I think Oviedo was looking for that same code to essentially what generated this comment header.
Right. Well, it's not code. Somebody did this manually, roughly.
I thought Michael Birch had a tool that he used to.
Oh, maybe he did. Anyway.
I never found it. Anyway, go ahead.
So this is this unforgeable name, and you call to byte array on that, and you get this. I think there's a nonce in there somewhere. Where'd the nonce go? So there's the signature. Oh, the signature is checked against the signature data and a non. Anyway, this it says URI derived from public key, and that is the case. And so all you need is the public key in order to build that thing. So down here it says, oops.
Oh, that's kind of interesting and kind of makes sense. So like if I'm using insert signed, there's only one spot in the registry where a given public key can insert something signed. And if I have two cool things I want to share, it needs to be two different public keys.
Yeah, that's one of the things he says here. Is the key pair unique for each contract? Yes, because the key registry is one term per key.
That makes sense. And I remember back in Boulder, they had explained the registry as like the URIs were going to be something like row registry ed25519 and then your actual key or something.
It's the Blake B256 hash of the public key with a 14-bit CRC Z-base32 encoded.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
So unpacking
doc I've ever seen Kyle write.
lines of JavaScript, which is not the end of the world, except that it was really, really, really tedious. So this is unpacking it here. So let's see here. Blake 2B56 blah 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 hash. We're familiar with this?
Conceptually,
Some popular hashing algorithm.
Yeah, yeah.
I think this is actually in the Windows Chrome library also, by the way. This is, yeah, they have a crypto library, I think, inside of Chrome that you can just call this and maybe some other standard elliptic curve stuff.
Anyway, and you just wish for it in NPM or whatever, and you get it. So yeah, the world just supplies that to us. All right, and B to H is binary to hex, and we export these from the RChain API. All right. Then human-oriented base32 encoding. That's Z-base32. This goes back to, I put it away. Basically, I traced down So org lightning J util, you go find out where org lightning J is and all this kind of stuff. And it turns out it's inspired by some Go code, which is inspired by some Python code, which is designed by Zuko, who designed everything back in 2002. So that's what that's all about. And it's basically base32 with this alphabet, which is supposed to be easier to handle by humans. And it took forever to find some combination of NP. You can't just wish for that in NPM. You can wish for base32, but then you have to specify your own. There's a thing called zbase32 in NPM, but it's downloaded once per blue moon, and it doesn't work. Yeah. And it has a weird license. Anyway.
So what is this one? It's just this little one-line function you wrote here? Wait, base32.stringify. Where did base32? Oh, from base32 encoding.
Yeah.
Okay. And it gave you some thing called stringify where you give it. That didn't come from NPM though? Or
the base32 in general did, but then I had to supply this library.
I see. Okay.
Alphabet, which comes from Zuko.
Oh, I see. I understand. Okay.
Right.
So where did you find the docs for that alphabet? Through that little rabbit hole you just took us through to that Zuko paper?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
It's right there.
Yeah, gotcha.
Wow.
I mean, it's also it's in the PyPy and the Go code and stuff like that. But anyway. Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's a test case. If you have this public key, you get this URI, and I did that sort of experientially. And then this is the code that shows you how to use the rest of the stuff, PK URI from the PK. And then I was looking at the hash too, because for trying to figure out where the problem was, because it wasn't always working. So then I print out the public key, the hash, the URI, and whether the hash matches what I was expecting. And so if I run this, so it says yes, and the test case only gets run if you run this from the command line. All right.
Wow.
And then how do they do that? So PKURI is not a function of its own in here. He does the hash first and then calls build URI, but I package them together so that if you just have the public key, you can go to town. Mm-hmm. And then build URI is this exact build URI function, which basically copies the hash into the first 32 bytes, and then it does this CRC14 in the last 1 3/4 bytes.
3/4 of a byte.
Serious 14 bits. What did you do with the last 2 bits?
They are 0 or something, but critically, when you convert them back to ASCII, you don't represent them. You don't put a little Y on the end, which would be a 0 on the end. So this represents 270 bits, not 272 bits. That thing there, yeah. So, sorry, where are we? Yeah, build URI, copy the R, which is the hash, into the full key, compute the CRC, jam the bytes into the end, and then call the zbase32, but make sure that you only use 270 bits worth. There's 5 bits per character, and so this is basically, I could do a string operation to chop off the last character. His encode to string had a bit length argument, but
okay.
And then the CRC14 thing, I barely understand what it does. I just understand Scala enough to convert it to JavaScript.
Recursive, yeah, okay, right.
It's something where you feed in an arbitrary number of bytes and out comes 14 bits.
All right.
So that works. Yeah, so what I was going to do with this is basically, this is what could serve in the R-chain world instead of Ethereum addresses.
Yeah, and I know Chris Bosco is big on using DIDs, which would be a variant of this, I assume, from the prefixes. Yeah.
And DIDs are very much like this in that you take a public key, you hash it, you stick a checksum on it somehow. The big difference with DIDs is that, so this URI kind of stands for the person who has the private key corresponding to that public key, right?
Yeah.
That's whoever can write to this thing. A DID is the person who once had that public key, because there's a key rotation protocol in DID, in the life ID anyway.
Yes. Yeah, and in Sovereign, yep.
Sovereign has a key rotation?
At least at the conceptual level, I believe they do, yeah.
Yeah, well, the conceptual level is pretty far from the real level, right?
That's. But I think the main. So yeah, you're right about who creates these, who has access to these, and then the other difference is the prefix standardization is.
Yeah, the DID standardization lets you update your DID directory entry, which allows you to update your public key or whatever.
For key rotation.
Right, which means that there's no secure way to get from your DID to your DID document.
Well, I think that in DID so it's like DID : and then it's like resolver instead of.
Yes, which means the DID means nothing. It's all about the resolver.
Correct.
Each resolver is an independent algorithm. The DID there's nothing common between all the DIDs.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I filed an objection against the spec to just say, if it's DID : sovereign : just write sovereign :
Yeah.
So what does DID stand for, and what's the one sentence version of what it does?
It's a decentralized identifier.
Okay.
And an identifier can then be used in context of an identity, but it can be used to point to a lot of other things. So it's relatively simple, and it gets really inflated, like it's the center of the universe of all decentralized identity and self-sovereign identity, and it's not. It's just an identifier and a resolver to something else, a DID document.
It's a standard way of identifying anything.
Yeah,
it contributes no technology. DID : allows you to find some other people who are trying to do similar things.
Fair enough, yeah. And then so the resolver it's all in the resolver, and that's platform specific. And so there could be a DID resolver for our chain registry. There could be a DID resolver for Ethereum and so forth. And it's all there. It's all in the resolver.
Yeah, the pain for me is that I went through all this with URNs. There was supposed to be URN colon this and URN colon that colon, and the URN colon part contributes nothing. It was supposed to say, oh, these are permanent. These are names. They'll last forever. No, they don't. They last just as long as the scheme underneath them provides, and they last no longer or shorter than HTTP, and HTTP lasts longer because there's more people doing it.
Yeah, it's made out to be sort of this magical solution to everything, and it doesn't solve much.
Well, I disagree. I think that all of our objects should have a DID. Everything we want to identify should have a DID, which allows the thing that we're referencing to handle its own identity.
Okay.
I was reading about distributed hash tables and hash array.
You get the same sentence with no change of meaning.
What was that?
If you take what Jim said and you change DID to URI, you get the same meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Dan, are you saying you agree with Jim's sentiment that about what would be a desirable final outcome, but that DID isn't specific to, or isn't the only way or the best way to solve that?
Yeah.
I think I'm not.
They've done a bunch of stuff that makes it look like they've made a standard when they actually haven't produced a spec for anything. They've said you can write the characters DID in front of things. Yeah, I think we all knew that you could do that.
Yeah, it's very platform specific, and it's Jim, just to correct your language a bit, it's an identifier. It's not really an identity of, for example.
Yeah, the DID directory entry is the capabilities map for the object.
I think that's consistent. Yes. So taking this into the R-chain world, I believe it would be helpful to have a common naming scheme for registry entries and a way to get to contracts so that the unforgeable names and private names and so forth had a consistent syntax around it, so that there's hope that the resolution of those things, those capabilities, might be able to be resolved in a similar fashion. That's an intuition. Do people agree with that statement?
My only question is, how is it different from what we have?
My understanding is that that unforgeable names have one syntax and one sort of a different length of that string, and by looking at it, you don't know it's I guess you do know it's an unforgeable name in the way that it comes out of the output, because it says unforgeable parentheses blah, but that looks different syntactically than the registry entries, right? I'm not 100%.
Okay, well, that is by design. That makes a lot of sense to me. In other words, an unforgeable name is not a thing that you can sort of scribble on a napkin and then hand to somebody else and let them look it up. The only way you can make use of an unforgeable name is if somebody sends it to you inside the chain.
Yeah, I think more generally inside the row VM wherever it's executing.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's because
that's what makes them unforgeable. To forge something is to write it down. It's like if I could take a dollar bill and copy the serial numbers to another piece of paper and have that accepted as a dollar, then I was forging the dollar, right?
Is it safe to say, I'm a little slow at conceptualizing the specifics. So is it specifically a runtime thing, and it can't be persisted out of the existing node you're talking to, and it's in memory stuff?
Sort of, pretty much. I mean, clearly, if you have an R node and you shut it down, it's gonna sort of persist the running. It's kind of like a virtual machine image, right?
Let me ask it this way.
Machine wakes back up, it doesn't know that it was ever persisted.
Let me ask it this way: do two different nodes, if for the same contract, have the same unforgeable name? Let's say you have two contracts talking to each other. and there's an unforgeable name involved. Are two nodes running? Do they have the same unforgeable name, or are they different?
You have to unpack that really, really slow. I don't know what you mean by two contracts. A contract is syntactic sugar for a for comprehension.
Okay, yeah. So two different chunks of rholang code talking to each other. If it's running on node A with an unforgeable name, is that the same unforgeable name as node B would have?
Yes. Yeah. In other words, the R-chain design is that all of the nodes make up just one big virtual machine.
Right.
Yes. And so the same process is running everywhere.
Right.
So
right.
this was this is why we have all this Blake 256 weirdness stuff, so that you could get the same. They called them deterministic unforgeable names, which blew my head until.
Yeah, but so since they're deterministic, why can't you write them down?
You can write them down. You can take them out of the virtual machine. You can't put them back in.
Yeah, I think let me try to come at this too.
Wait, hold on just a sec, Joshi. Like in Java, if you have a Java program that's running and you have some reference to an object, you could core dump the process and you could see what the actual address of that object is, right?
Right, place in memory, right?
Right. But you can't write a piece of Java code that has that number in it and get that number to point to the object anyway. It doesn't work. The Java language is not that way.
I agree, but since in rholang everything is persisted after every COM event, or right, or every deploy and block, then aren't these things persisted by the calling contract?
Yes, but there's no way to turn the number back into the unforgeable name, just like there's no way to turn an integer into a pointer in Java.
But when you say there's no way, doesn't the code need to do that? Sorry, did we lose someone? Oh, Joshi.
We don't want the code to do this. This is a feature. Let's put it this way. The fact that there are numbers underneath unforgeable names is an implementation detail.
Okay.
So they could be like squirrels or something.
Okay. This is just one of the guarantees the platform makes, in essence. And a rogue rholang rogue R-chain fork, probably because of the way the consensus works on hashing blocks and so forth, couldn't expose these and manipulate them because of the consensus. I'm just trying to think of how R-chain can make this promise, since it's running on many places. And
yeah, that's exactly the case. Is that the validators look at the way you. So one validator says, "Hey, look, I executed the rholang, and here's how it went." And the other validators go, "Okay, step one, step two. Wait, step three, you forged an unforgeable name. You can't do that."
Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you so much for. I appreciate your patience, because this is kind of it's a new paradigm for me. Cool.
I think you can commit unforgeable names, and they can be validated, but each one makes a new. Each R node would make a new unforgeable name and use that, right? So that.
Well, what Dan said is that if you have two sets of contracts or rholang running on two machines, they will each make the same unforgeable name. It's just in the context they're in, they're going to check each other through consensus ultimately, and they will the rho VM will guarantee that those things aren't exposed or manipulated. Is that fair recap?
Yeah. So Yeah, so it's kind of like, all right, so every time you do the new operation in rholang, somebody has to conjure up something that's never been seen before, okay? And so one of the ways we know as engineers how to do this is large random numbers, okay? So you pick 64-bit random numbers. We figure maybe that's big enough. Or maybe they're 256-bit, I don't know.
Right, but since both need to create the same thing, it uses cryptography and hashing instead.
Right, yeah, so it has this splittable random number, and it's seeded by the deploy parameters. So if you deploy the same thing at two different nodes using the same deploy parameters, they're going to end up with the same unforgeable names all the way through the execution trace.
Okay, so I'm with you, and I really appreciate your patience explaining that to me. So going back to the example you were...
Hold on just a sec. You know what you owe me, or what we owe each other, is now documentation for that.
Yeah, I'm still confused. As I understood it, it doesn't matter that on two different nodes, whether the unforgeable name is the same or not. What matters is it's consistent within the node. So
no, it does matter.
Every time it validates the code, it uses its version of the unforgeable name.
No.
Well, okay, but Jim's got an interesting perspective on this, and I think I was thinking that way at one point. Ed, why does it matter?
Well, it matters because every time there's a COM event that may be deployed and persisted into a block, and those processes will involve taking a look at at least the hashes of things, so that when they go through consensus, they can both agree on the state of the virtual machine. Or
right, but why isn't it the case that you could make up one set of random numbers and I could make up another set of random numbers, and if you were the guy who proposed the block, I could check your random numbers and they might be good enough. I could check the way you used rholang. So here's my understanding of why they have to be deterministic, which is that our chain is a DAG, not a chain, and so you can actually have branches of the chain separate, and then when they come back together, both halves have to have used the same names in order for it to come back together. And I would probably have to unpack that for myself, actually, because for a long time I didn't see why they had to be deterministic.
Well, don't you think even if it were a linear chain, the code has to run independently, sort of from just all the inputs has to run independently, and they both have to agree on two nodes, even if it were a linear chain?
No, I just have to be able to check that the way you ran the code is good enough. It could be that there are many ways to run the code, and all of them are correct.
That doesn't make sense to me, because the source of truth of this is the source code of the node, our node, and the virtual machine, and the contracts and the COM events coming in, or quote unquote transactions.
Right, but what if you were allowed to just pick random numbers for all the new names? As long as you didn't pick the same number for any of the names, what if we judge that to be correct?
Well, then it wouldn't be efficient in a sense, because every node would be double checking everyone else's work all the time.
That is the case. That is the case. Every validator is checking every other node's work all the time.
Well, but they're checking it from the inputs that are deterministic, not randomness.
But it doesn't matter. Why does it matter that the inputs were deterministic? In other words, what if there's more than one correct way to interpret the code? In fact, there are more than one correct way to interpret the code, because there's races, and each node gets to choose which race wins.
Well, because one node might be malicious, but
if we say that there's more than one correct way to interpret the code, which there is, it's not malicious to say that A won the race instead of B.
Yeah, good point.
So it could be also the case that the unforgeable names, one guy can pick 127 and the other guy can pick 123, and it doesn't matter. They're both correct. And I think the only reason that they have to pick the same unforgeable names is that we eventually have to be able to merge the branches of the tree. I'm not sure about that.
Whew. Yeah, I'm not sure I could write this up. You were asking earlier what we owe each other.
Right. Okay. I'm not sure either. Did we record this in any case?
We did. We're recording.
Okay.
So yeah, to get some core devs explaining this would be interesting. So sorry, Jim, to interrupt you during that that exploration.
Oh, you didn't interrupt me.
Okay.
Dan was, yeah, I was done with that part.
Okay, Dan, can I go back to what you were showing earlier with, if I understood, was generating predictable registry entries?
Mm-hmm.
So why does a client adapt? Why is it useful for adapt to predict the registry entries?
I think the next place I was going to use this is Alice Pays Bob. I think that this kind of URI can serve the same purpose as an Ethereum address.
Okay.
And it's not the sender who predicts the URI from the public key, it's the receiver. In other words, the receiver just has his 12 words, right? And from the 12 words, he can get a private key, and from the private key, he can get a public key, and from the public key, he can get one of these URIs.
Does Bob have a wallet at the beginning of that scenario?
That's a good question, but it's a slightly separate one, okay?
Okay, okay.
Are we okay with that?
Yeah, when we start introducing the wallet Alice Pays Bob scenarios, I have to admit I'm really confused how how everything can and should work, because there's a lot of design choices through that.
Right, but hold on. Can we just focus on whether this URI is completely analogous to an Ethereum address?
Well, does it make the assumption that Bob has just one wallet?
No more or less than Ethereum.
Well, Ethereum does make the assumption that there's one address per user, so it is.
No, it doesn't.
Well, that for a given private key.
Yes, that's very different from for a given user, right?
I'm sorry. Yes, that's right. But in the example you were describing, where the inputs would include let's say the public key of the receiver, and then you can generate this URI from it.
Right.
It seems like there's an assumption in that statement that the receiver will have only one, let's call it basic wallet for purposes of this conversation.
Again, no more or less than Ethereum, right?
Well, Ethereum's definitely one. In the sense of the Ether wallet has an address that's derived from the public key, and there's only one of those per private key. So,
which is exactly the case here, right?
But our chain allows. Okay, that's why I said more or less the same as Ethereum. Yeah. So, okay. So at least there's one canonical basic wallet instance, if you will, for this approach. Again, I know I'm jumping levels of abstraction, but I have to always tie this back to my abstract mental model.
Yeah. So what we register here may or may not be a basic wallet, but we can only register one thing there.
Okay.
which is a lot like Ethereum. It might be a normal account or it might be a contract or whatever,
Got it.
but I think it serves the same purpose.
Okay. So the predictability of this is important in the context of adapt to predict this the sender's URI, this the destination, not just the creator of this. So let me go back to the Alice space Bob. So I'm the Alice private key. I through a DApp, and I want to pay Bob in a standard kind of way. And so I need to know Bob's address. If that were in the registry, I'm sorry, I'm maybe not using precise. If that were in the registry, I could just use it and I could predict what it was. If it's not in the registry yet, I could actually create it for Bob because Bob would be able to create the same thing.
Well, actually, let's slow down here. If Alice is going to pay Bob, Bob has to just provide the address, right? In Ethereum, Bob just has to tell you his address, right?
Yeah.
Right. And if there's nothing registered in Ethereum, as soon as you know somebody's address, you can send a payment and the payment is sent.
Right.
Right. In our chain, if I know this address, but you have not registered anything there, when I look up to get a wallet, I'm going to lose.
Okay.
So that is a big difference.
So you know where to look, but in fact, you as Alice, you couldn't create this registry entry because it's Bob's registry entries, and he needs a private key to be able to.
Bingo.
Create.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. So that helps.
But so well, the next thing I'm going to do. So you know how the claim stuff works, right?
Verifiable claims.
No, sorry, the wallet check claims.
Yes. Yeah, I get that. Yes, you should. Yes.
Right. So the next thing I want to do is take stuff out of the wallet check and register it at these URIs.
I'm following. Yeah, yeah. So that you have a. Why do they need to be registered? Sorry. Say I'm Bob. I'm Alice. I had rocks. I know I will have revs at Genesis time. Is it so I can predict what that wallet check URI is?
No, the wallet check lets me look my stuff up by Ethereum address or public key and all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
but if I'm Alice, no, if I'm Bob, and I want you to pay me, so Bob can go through the wallet check thing and find his wallet. But it would be handy if he then stuck it at this place in the registry so that Alice can pay him. Bob could put an empty wallet there, but it might be handy to take the rock that he had and put his rev there.
He might not be able to if it requires rev to create a wallet.
That's a whole separate issue. Can we leave that aside for a sec?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Okay, got it. So yeah, since the current intention of wallet check is just for the Genesis issuance, I would actually like to make it more general. But so Bob could take from wallet check and create his own basic wallet and put the basic wallet, what do you call it, pointer into this registry entry. Or registry.
I just call it a basic wallet.
Sorry for to be slow on this. So is that meaning the actual rholang for basic wallets that's inside this registry?
In the normal case, a basic wallet is going to be an unforgeable name.
Okay, so the unforgeable name sets
right
is referenced by this registry entry.
Right.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and when you have this intuition that you want to generalize wallet check, to me, I end up at the registry. This is the generalized version.
I see.
And that's kind of why I want to put the wallet there.
I have to say I'm really so everything you're saying is good. I may have some different notions of wallet check that are more general around payment requests and other workflows, but that could be another thing that's wallet check like. Um, I'm nervous about the Poland discussions coming up this following week. They're they're not necessarily going to be up to speed on your thinking and the internalizing the requirements and so forth. Hopefully, I'll remain hopeful.
Right. I wonder if there's a row in this spreadsheet where this URI stuff is directly relevant here. There was one of these I was going to do next. I'm trying to remember what it was. Set up a basic wallet contract given a public key. I think that was that is the one that caused me to go down this path.
Okay, so it's a two-step thing. There's creating the basic wallet, getting and you could actually predict its unforgeable name before it's even generated, and then you would store that unforgeable name inside a registry entry that you could also predict.
Yeah,
I follow. Okay.
In this case, I don't think it's as useful to predict the unforgeable name. In other words, I'm not going to try to.
Okay, I need it for another reason, but I'll describe that later.
Okay.
Okay. Well, maybe not.
So this stuff here, the ability to predict this URI from the public key, allows us to collapse these two requirements here. Given the registry of my basic wallet or given my public key, because I can turn my public key into a registry URI.
Got it. Does this approach then require another round trip between the client app and the server, and does that round trip require another block in between it? So there's time involved.
Another, other than what?
Well, if I knew the basic wallet unforgeable name myself as the DApp, I could just go directly to it. But if I had to go through the registry first, I would have to read that, deploy that part of rholang code, and I believe that would have to go through a block proposal to get the unforgeable name, and then another read of then interacting with the basic wallet. So it seems like there's additional round trips for the DApp, which I'm mostly worried about time more than I am about cost.
Yeah, I haven't tried to optimize any of that. I've been pretty much doing all my stuff using rholang inside the, executing rholang inside the thing. There are other ways to just inspect the blockchain instead. I've started to look at that, but it looks a lot harder. Not a lot harder.
Okay, can I take a little diversion, which is the number one on my list about private names and how they would be. I may be confusing private names and unforgeable names.
They're the same thing.
Okay. I'm sorry. Then I'm not confusing them. Do you got a minute for this diversion?
Yes.
Okay. So here was my intuition a while ago. Okay. So the starting from the user requirement kind of level is you know, as Alice, I want to only care about my private key, and that's all I should have to remember.
Yep.
I shouldn't have to keep a list of, you know, private names of where various stuff is. So yeah, the registry is one way to establish the pointers to these other things. But another way would be if Alice wants her private name to her, let's call it her basic wallet. I'm the Alice agent, which is in the DApp, right? So the DApp would need then a conventional approach that it uses to take the user, and I'm using the field name here the user and a timestamp for a particular contract for its, you know, first, second, third, fourth unforgeable names. And so I was starting to implement that. And so as long as the DApp has some freedom on how it defines user and more importantly that it can create its own timestamps that have some correlation to the private key one way or another, so then the DApp could you know, just with the private key, repredict the unforgeable name that may have been created, you know, 4 weeks ago for the basic rev contract, you know, first unforgeable name on it, that kind of thing. Do you follow?
I think so.
So I think all of that can be done. It can be done by the DApp, and so that meets that requirement. And it wouldn't have, you know, these additional round trips, and it would help to preserve possibly some privacy of that private name, where, you know, the traffic to put it into the registry might expose something. So anyway, the registry seems more convenient, and of course, especially determining the destination address, or the destination of where you're going to send rev. I hadn't solved that one yet, and so the registry approach that you're describing does solve that destination problem.
Okay, so when you're doing this stuff of timestamps and stuff, that will let you, you know, compute unforgeable names and do things like, you know, you can directly read the blockchain. It will not allow you to use those private names in rholang.
No?
Correct. Again, you cannot turn an integer into a pointer.
Okay. Yeah, you've said that before. and
just because you know the long random number doesn't mean you can use it as a, you know, it doesn't mean you can write it into a piece of rholang.
Okay, and therefore we have to use the registry to solve this.
Yeah, the only way I know to access you know, capabilities from off-chain is via the registry.
Okay, I can live with that. The only concern now I have is that, you know, that's probably some additional time and rev to. I'm mostly worried about the time, because it's potentially you know, two blocks. Okay, we'll work through that.
Yeah, the fact that you have to actually execute rholang to do some of this stuff is probably. We've talked about alternatives where you could have an execution mode for a node that doesn't really affect the chain.
Mm-hmm. And I guess once that I was thinking once you knew some of this information as Alice's wallet you could cache some of it, but not really, right? Because
Right.
anything you cache violates the you can't turn the integer into the pointer kind of logic. Okay, that's going to take me some time to re-internalize what that means for. But it seems like you're going down the exact right path, given what you said. Okay, that was number one on my list.
Yeah. Do you want to? I tried to figure out how you could read the registry without executing rholang. Are you interested in that at all?
Not particularly.
Okay.
It seems a little deep for where my head's at the moment.
Right. One short version of it is that the registry really is a data structure inside the chain, and so you just look around in the tuple space.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. One of the next things I had on my list was looking at just to point at the features pull request if anyone's interested in that. Dan, since you're saying this, yeah, there it is. Oh, so can you click on the link in the chat?
Maybe.
Maybe I didn't do the pull request. Yeah, it's the second one on that list there. On your screen, up one. So if you click on the wallet link or scroll down, so I clean these up a bit to make them more consistent, and then I dumped in a bunch of multi-sig wallet sub-user stories. I suspect that the multi-user wallet stories are going to get cut from Mercury completely because of time. I think the leadership probably won't be willing to slip Mercury by a day or 3 weeks to get multi-sig done.
Well, that is an interesting situation, because then the co-op's treasury is sitting in a single sig wallet.
Exactly. So one mitigation for that is the co-op could have lots of small treasuries and either a key sharing or key splitting technique until multi-sig comes along, and
right.
Then they move it. So I was planning on giving a heads up to Kenny, who I know is very concerned about this requirement for the same reasons we mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's an easy way to do a very lightweight multi-sig, but I kind of went wild on those requirements.
Well, that's the other thing, is that you might want to think about, how many of these are requirements.
Yes. So I was basically doing a brain dump on the kinds of things that the Gnosis wallet does. So if and this is the kind of thing that I think it's a discussion then between someone representing the co-ops or organizations needs and the product owner and Greg, to say, well, what's the minimum? So at least they have a pick list. They can say which ones they believe.
Well, you would do them a service if you shortened the list.
Yeah. Okay. I'll try to get some time with Kenny to do that.
Right.
Okay. Fair enough. So I'll take that action item. So anyway, I just wanted to point you at the revised list here.
And to what extent is this synchronized with the spreadsheet?
I think it's. Did I do? I'm trying to remember if I put in key management. Yeah, I did. So it doesn't have the design, some of the design flavor that the spreadsheet has, but I believe I've covered, all of the requirements. I don't have like import a JSON UTC file. I don't have that on the list.
So, well, you have this. I can import my private key somehow.
Yes.
So the UTC JSON file would be sufficient for that. Maybe not necessary.
No. If somebody, for example, is using a ledger, they would have to expose their private key somehow, which they can do, but that path wouldn't easily generate a UTC file.
Why not?
Well, okay. I guess there'd be a way to, use some Ethereum utility to get it done. Yep. Okay.
Oh, here's a question. This URI right here, to what extent is that Ethereum style for you?
It's not at all Ethereum style in the sense that it's not hexadecimal, that you can't just put in your Ethereum address that, the users will be familiar with.
Okay.
That's the main one. And it looks like, therefore, it looks like it has a lot more bits of information in it than the Ethereum address does.
Okay, it was partly a question of, when you say Ethereum style, do you mean like conforms to Ethereum specs, which I gather you do mean?
Oh, that's what I do mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's another sense in which this is Ethereum style, which is that it's a hash of a public key.
Yeah, I mean the syntax.
Right.
Specifically, yeah.
Yeah, because Ethereum is all SecP 256K1, and the RChain stuff does both that and ED25519. So if you have an ED25519 public key, you could hash that and get something that looks like an Ethereum style address, but it wouldn't work as an Ethereum address.
I understand. Yep.
So, and I don't remember. Yeah, this one, all you need, you would need to know the which style you're doing. Anyway, yeah. I guess in both cases.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting that they didn't put the key suite in here at all.
What's key suite?
25519 versus
in the URI itself.
Right. Because, for example, the insert signed.
Yeah, they assume ED255 whatever.
They don't assume it; they state it.
Oh, that's right. That is a parameter on insert sign. Okay.
It's not a parameter; it's just part of the name.
Oh.
Where is it? Oh, the release notes. Here we are. Yeah, row registry insert signed ED25519.
Oh, okay. But it doesn't come out the other end to.
Right. The URI you get doesn't include 25519, which is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then if you are interested, I could show you a little bit of how I'm putting this stuff in Scala.js.
Is it open source?
It is not.
Don't want to use my office hours for it.
Okay, no problem. I understand, and I'm not offended. Cool. Jim, Steve, anything?
No, I don't have anything in
Has
particular.
anybody played with Life ID?
No, I'd be interested in seeing their Ethereum contracts that they were working on.
Is there software? I mean, is there like, can you use Life ID on our chain? They were.
No, I think they got blocked. They were working on rholang contracts, and they ran into a lot of these same issues we were. I don't know how far they got. I don't know if it went into public GitHub. And then they either switched or in parallel worked on Ethereum contracts. And I also don't know if those are in GitHub. So they may have a lot more than that. That's just the status I'm aware of.
Do they have anything in GitHub? Okay, they have something. Oh, right. They forked our chain API.
Documentation-ish, okay.
Oh, okay. That's the whole registry. Okay. I thought maybe it was their entry. This is a fork of some tool. Not a whole lot here.
Okay, yeah, they have more, just not public apparently.
Oh, wait, here's some stuff.
Oh, so they need a implicit parameter for the elliptic curve in there, maybe.
So how many key bits do you get in here? $65 bytes. That's enough. In other words, I think I could take a Life ID and turn it into an R-chain registry ID. Because I could get the 64 bytes out of here. Or public keys are 32 or 60. Anyway, I can get the public key out of here and stick it into the JavaScript code we just talked about and go to town.
Yeah, I like this. I like that they have version network on here.
On the other hand, I think they're...
Could have the curve, I guess. Oh.
Do you know if they have documented their key rotation stuff?
No, I don't.
Okay. What was I just looking at? Oh, right, there it is. Yeah, I think Chris was going to give me access to the stuff at one point.
You know, I'd love to see a roadmap to, using self-sovereign identity and the voting kind of contracts for our chain governance. That'd be awesome.
Say that one more time. Both of
I'd
those.
love to see a roadmap, from the co-op of how to use a self-sovereign ID and voting for our chain co-op governance decisions.
Right. Have you seen the channel-based security and sovereign identity stuff?
Yes. Yeah, I had some comments on that. That seems more than what's needed for these kind of, the governance kind of things are a lot about process of, associating a valid member claim or attestation, around somebody's private identifier, ultimately.
Well, I think this is what this is all about. Yeah, I haven't worked through. I've worked through some of the details, and then I got down to a certain place, and then I couldn't extract what he was thinking. But yeah, this, to my mind, this is exactly that.
Oh, okay. This is probably more sophisticated than what might be needed, for example, for voting in the next co-op member meeting or
Right. Yeah, this is kind of an architecture that goes all the way up to, getting the world to cooperate and stuff. But somewhere in the middle there,
yeah,
is enough stuff for this fall.
Cool.
Yeah, the hardest one to me is secret voting.
Yeah.
There wasn't a secret voting contract that you copied from Ethereum?
That's correct. It was not.
Okay, I didn't.
The voting contract in Ethereum was, everything was on chain.
Okay, there is a secret voting contract for Ethereum that you can Google.
That seems like a good trick.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly how it was done.
It costs a tenth of an ether. Holy cow. It's like $26 for a vote or something, isn't it?
I was just looking at GitHub.
I guess you could, it says arbitrary exchange. I guess you could change the exchange rate.
And it looked like, you could run the contracts without charging for them. I don't know what staking is. It may not be the same one. I don't know. I don't remember anything about staking. Oh, voting tokens. Maybe that was part of it. Right. I think you could get like, if you got 10 votes, okay, you could vote on 10 proposals. So it forced you to choose to vote on the things that were important to you. But you couldn't vote more than once on one proposal.
Secret contracts are smart contracts that execute on the decentralized network without revealing input data, ensuring data's privacy. What the heck? Every call to the contract is, maybe they encrypt the stuff off chain before they send it on chain? I don't think I see anything secret here.
Hey guys, I need to bail and get some other things done this morning. It's great hanging out with you. See you.
All right. Bye for now.
Take care, Ed.
Guess I'm going to log off and maybe watch some of this or whatever.
Can we take a quick look at my voting bug? My inbox bug. You know how quick it would be.
Okay.
Oops. Bang. So this is my allowed to vote procedure. And it puts back, it puts it puts in the inbox a vote for the ballot, the right permission, the right capability, the ability to vote. Okay. Then in vote, I go to receive from the mailbox the vote with the ballot, and I get back a nil, and it returns nil. So if we look at,
Wait, that's a send. That's not a receive.
right, I'm doing a read of the inbox. These are the things that I'm receiving from my inbox. Okay, I receive them in the return. So so a vote for the ballot should be returned, should return the voter. The voter then we can, on the voter contract, we can vote this is, we can vote for proposal and get a result back. The problem is I get a null here. And if I look at the inbox, whoops. I don't know what I did there. And I look at the right, aha, it's just the right message. I think I found the bug.
All righty. Happy to play rubber duck.
So when I write to the inbox, when I write to the inbox, I'm supposed to write it with a message. Okay, I write it with a message, but I don't think I give it a return. No return. Now, if I don't care about the return, all I could do is standard out here. And oh, expected knots 31. Now, if I'm not in Discord, it doesn't keep track of the knots for me. I can probably see back in my history here that there was a defined locker knots 26. Well, that was for Jim Scarver. But here we're using dummy user. And his knots. What?
So this secret voting contract thing I found runs on the Enigma network, which is separate from the Ethereum network.
I'll have to see if I can find that other one that I found. I don't remember exactly how it worked, but it was. So how in the world did I break this? Let me try it on Discord. What? Didn't define it. How could that be? Not running. I guess I killed it. 120. Oh.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Oh boy.
Well, Jim, I think I'm going to head off as well.
All right.
Enjoyed the session today.
Got a slash in there. Start. Log it. It's running. Okay. Edit this in order to copy it. And I can put it back in. And now it's defined. Delete this. Okay, and now I can try another vote. Still defined the vote for the colors. All right. Let's pause. So we're doing the allow to vote first, and then put in my Discord name and the ballot. And I have to have a colon, now colon. I have to wonder what that nil is there. Huh, I don't know why it switches screens like that. Okay. So let's just, if I look at allow to vote, Fine. Allow. $3 sign there. I can jump there and look at that. Okay, so I can see I'm looking for where it prints nil. Prints nil when I write to the inbox. It's valid. Valid vote. It should be fine. So now I should be able to vote. Color is valid. Color blue. And I got the vote. Then it looks like I voted. Vote results. Colors. Then the last time there were no votes, so now there should be one vote. Doesn't show a tally. That shows the winner blue. Why doesn't it show a tally? I guess it didn't vote.